Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I have the pleasure of being joined by Erica Farmer, who is the co-founder and director of Quantum Rise. Erica, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here, excited for the conversation that we're going to have, especially off the back of learning technologies quite recently as well. And no doubt some of our reflections will come into this, I can imagine.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about that as well, right? Why not? Why not? So we're in this space of AI where we talk about AI in human capital, AI in learning, artificial intelligence in all of its weird and wonderful guises, from machine learning and neural networks and recommender engines all the way through to the GPTs and Claudes and Groks of this world. Will do something a bit more interesting, and everything in between. But as you've just referenced learning tech, we were just at learning tech and had a little bit of coffee and had the chance to talk about what the impact of AI is going to be on our industry and what we're seeing in the market based on what is the biggest event for suppliers in the calendar year. And to some degree, what we had said we were going to talk about, AI and the humans and critical thinking and problem solving, all of the things that people are saying that people should do and all the things that people are saying AI should do. But let's start with the point of learning tech, because we've kind of just been there. It's fresh in our minds. And I did some live posting, live vlogging while I was there. I had a chat with lots of different portions of the market to figure out what was going on. But what was your take? What did you think of the show, the industry, what you were seeing from suppliers, all of these things?
Yeah, it's always a game of two halves for me, these kind of events, because it's mecca, I guess, in a way for L&D to meet people. Like you said, we met for the first time, grabbed a coffee, which was amazing to have that face-to-face, catched up with some clients, caught up with some great network and some people. I wasn't particularly drawn, although I wandered around several times on the exhibition floor, to anything that there was nothing that felt really different that I kind of, my ears pricked up and went, oh, I need to go and learn about, I'm going to get something from that, or that feels different, or that looks different. It was kind of the video avatars, the create the e-learning, or the plat search kind of Netflix hyper personalization. You know, does it do what it says on the tin, search facility type stuff? There wasn't anything which I felt, do you know what, you guys are going to draw the market here because this feels really different, which was a shame because it was some really good conversations with people. But actually, when you stress test it from a learning and development buying perspective, didn't feel different in any way. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, so my reflections are very similar. I thought that suppliers are very good at delivering what clients want, because that's market forces, and it's what happens. And I suspect very much clients aren't really asking for the kinds of things that the likes of you and I might be going and hoping that are being delivered. And had a couple of, it's a show. I had a couple of ranty conversations, right, with a few people, because it's good when you got everybody together and you can have a few more opinionated discussions. And I had this discussion with a couple of suppliers who are a bit more into data. And I was kind of challenging the whole XAPI business, right? Because my reflections on XAPI are that we had the promise of a different data standard that was going to do some things. Yeah. And it's been poorly adopted. And now we're at a point where actually with conversational models, we probably don't need that data specification. Life probably has moved on. But if life has moved on, what is there any mileage in talking about something like XAPI when the industry hasn't really moved on from SCORM? And if all of that's true, then this concept of personalization is based on what? It's based on nothing. What did you click on?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you don't really have that deep personal data, like social media. You remember the whole Cambridge Analytica thing with Facebook? And they're like, we know everything about everybody and we can really target things. We're not in that position because we haven't collected everything on everybody.
Yeah.
So if we haven't, then how do we get to this point of talking about personalization as if it's a thing in our industry? I don't really get it,
Yeah. Yeah. And also people's needs change constantly. So if you're gathering data around, I don't know, capabilities or skills matrices or job families or whatever, typical talent L&D data, that by default is going to change because of what AI is going to drive anyway. So it is chicken and egg, which is why you kind of almost crave for the innovative approach, the kind of that looks new and interesting, because is that what's going to drive it? Because you're right, I've got clients that are kind of behind the curve on adopting even Microsoft Copilot because they're nervous of their data set in the background or what sits on SharePoint or whatever it might be. And that becomes the barrier then to introducing large language models, because the the poorness of the data, when actually, isn't it like, what's the problem that we're trying to solve here? Isn't that the drive, or should be the drive? And we talk about that in L&D all the time, right? It should be a business case and what are we doing to enhance the business or productivity or motivation or whatever it might be. Why would introduction of large language models be any different? I don't know, maybe that's a naive response from me, but that's kind of where I sit in the whole human kind of distinctive skills piece, I think.
I mean, let's dig into that a little bit, because it's not only the human piece, but it's also the L&D piece, and how should we be doing things. And I think this idea of having a business purpose is, like we've talked about it, but I think it's being glossed over a little bit when we talk about things like Copilot implementation, because in my business, I have Copilot. I also have ChatGPT, I have Claude, I have everything, because I'm running an AI business. Why wouldn't I have everything? But they all have different uses. There's a different thing that each of these different applications are better at or worse at than their counterparts. And I think it's a little bit of a short-sighted view to just implement Copilot and say that's going to do everything.
Yeah.
But that seems to be where organizations are going. So when we have the conversation about, what should people be doing and what should AI be doing, we need to have one eye on this. What is an unfortunate fact for me that I'm seeing a lot of people a lot of people in organizations are saying that their IT departments have implemented Copilot and then restrict everything else. So we probably need to have an eye on that, right?
Yeah, again, because it's tech first rather than skills first. And you're hearing a lot of skills first organisational type phraseology and jargon and careers and talent management, L&D, etc. But how can it be skills first if we're just, arguably the tech that we will partner with and collaborate going forwards more than anything else in history? We don't even understand what that means in terms of a strategy and why we're pushing that forward. And to your point, you default to Microsoft Copilot just because that's part of the, I guess, the Microsoft environment that you've already bought. So by default, somebody's made a decision on the price of a license versus the impact that it could be giving the organization. And with a new client tomorrow, and it was actually refreshing to hear them say, yes, we do have Copilot, but we've also invested in ChatGPT because we know it gives us this, and we're also looking at this tool because we know it's going to give us something different. And my first response was, that's probably shouldn't be that surprising, but I was like, that's so refreshing to hear, because it's, which is crazy really, but it's like, why are we looking for the scraps? This should be innovative and different and the next revolution and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think it's in the word revolution a little bit that you've got potentially, it's going to sound terrible what I'm going to say anyway, potentially you've got L&D teams who don't know how to make sense of the AI market, and they're struggling to keep up with all the innovations, talking to IT teams who are also struggling with that same point, making sense of the market and what are the innovations that are out there. And they're talking with business leaders who are struggling to find use cases for AI, but somehow they still kind of want to do it. And that then takes us down this road of, is there anything we already have we can just upgrade, click a button, pay a couple of dollars more every month, and then we've done it.
Yeah. Which ironically, we've got the opportunity, and I know we said this in COVID around hybrid working and virtual learning and this kind of stuff, but one of the things I was listening to, one of the seminars I was listening to, it might have been Josh Burson talking about it actually last week, was you can't afford to sit there and pretend that somebody else is going to draw up your chair at the table. Like, if you're not influencing your company's AI strategy right now in terms of not just what tools are being used, but how and the impact, and particularly the OD, so not just content and skills, but OD and redesign of what success looks like organisationally, that you're already a step behind. We can't just play that poor kind of cousin type role again, or like just wait for it to feed through your chief tech officer to your chief people officer, and then the chief people officer goes, kick it over the fence, L&D over to you type thing. The ones that I'm seeing really successfully are the ones that have been kind of testing and learning what this means in scaling coaching, for example. They were testing and learning 2 years ago, and they're now kind of on their second wave of scaling and their continuous improvement, and they're seeing an uplift in business development and conversion because they're able to track the performance of the business development team more successfully on virtual meetings and things like that. None of it's
Mm.
rocket science or big, expensive AI tools, but the thinking and the strategy has been done with the involvement of the HR and the L&D function to understand what that looks like from a people perspective. And that seems, well, there's a bit of a missing link there at the moment for me, and that's quite rare, those kind of situations.